that we've talked some NBA, some Major League Baseball, we got to get on to football. And this one, it's just football, Cedric. That's the only thing I can think of. It's a little bit of everything, but let's start with this. The New Orleans Saints, obviously their record-setting quarterback, Drew Brees, injured, coming back eventually, but Teddy Bridgewater, the question of staying with Bridgewater a little while longer, letting Brees recover, it's a little bit of a conundrum right now for the Saints, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because Teddy B has been better than they thought he'd be.
Yeah.
5 straight wins. They're rolling. They're in first place in the NFC South. And even with the Alvin Kamara injury, they're still figuring out ways to win. And they have wins. This is not just one of these things where they're fattening up on weaker sisters. They have wins over teams that I think are going to be in the playoffs.
Right.
They won at Seattle. They beat the Cowboys at home. So they are a tough-minded bunch. Drew Brees has been practicing. He's been throwing a regulation-sized football for the last couple of weeks, and he's told reporters that he plans to play on Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. Here's the thing, Jen. They got a bye week after this week. They've got some momentum. Why not? Don't you think they're good enough to beat the Cardinals without Drew Brees?
Yep.
And if you sit Brees this week, he gets to rest that thumb for another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Another 2 weeks. He rests that thumb. He's ready to roll. He gets back acclimated with the ones. I don't think you play Drew Brees this week. I know he's a competitor. I know him personally. I've been around him. He hates not playing football, and the Saints are rolling. He wants back on the field. But if I'm Sean Payton, I pull my boy aside and I go, look, let's get this last dub with Teddy B. Rest you for 2 weeks, and then we know you're 100%.
Yeah.
You don't have to throw next week, but the week after we'll get that thumb ready to go. I don't think they play him this week.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation because, if you're looking at Breeze's perspective, would it be good to maybe play in an actual game against a team that, maybe they're not going to be your toughest test, to get back on the field that way. But, I think if you're the Saints and you're thinking long term, surely an extra 2 weeks of healing, that bye week is really, to me, the deciding factor that you say, you know what, let's let it heal a little bit longer. I mean, he may be fine. If they had to play in the playoffs this weekend, maybe he could go. But if
That's
you're not,
that's different.
If you're not in the playoffs, if you've got a bye week out there, to me, that just makes sense. Now, can you say that to the future Hall of Famer if he says, I'm playing? I mean, to me, this is a setup where, you've got a veteran coach in Sean Payton who has a good rapport with Drew Brees. I think if you're the Saints, you got to call on that level of trust and understanding between those two to make the best decision. If you feel like the best decision is waiting and letting it heal a little bit longer, boy, the thing you would hate to have happen is to him to get hit and then he's out another 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I mean, that would just be, if you're the Saints, you'd have your heart in your throat with something like that happening. But because we all know how important quarterbacks are, that brings us to this question, Cedric. Another guy from your neck of the woods, right now in your neck of the woods, Sam Ehlinger. We saw the close call Texas had against Kansas.
Wow.
Cedric.
Wow.
And to me, it was all about Sam Ehlinger putting his team on his back and saying, come on with me, we're going to win this ball game. Sam Ehlinger may be the most important player in the Big 12. And I don't say that to say he's the best, but for his team, nobody may be more important than Sam Ehlinger.
In this conference, absolutely. He's with Charlie Brewer to Baylor,
Yep.
Same type of thing. I think Sam Ehlinger is holding this thing up almost by himself. The Texas Longhorns offense has no problems putting points on the board. It's the defense that's the problem. It's historically bad.
Ooh.
Jen, I'll give you a guess real quick. Last 4 games, how many yards has the Texas defense given up?
Oh, my gosh. Combine the last 4 games?
Yes.
I'll go, I'll just round to 2,000.
2,040 yards.
Woo!
If you're on The Price is Right, you would have won both showcases. You were with $100 of the actual retail price.
I'd be going to France tomorrow.
A new car, a trip to Bermuda, and some jet skis, Jen. You'd have got all of that stuff. They've given up 2,000 yards, and offenses are averaging 7 yards a play against Todd Orlando's defense. Todd Orlando, the defensive coordinator, is making $1.7 million a year.
Wow.
You know what? I can go out there and give up 7 yards a play for a lot less money than that, Jen. I think if Sam Ehlinger gets hurt, the Texas Longhorns go kaput. You can say that with a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts not playing for OU would hurt them as well.
Yeah.
But OU's got a little bit of a pulse on defense. Alex Grinch got that thing going now, and they are a legitimate CFP contender. I think they're going to run the table in the Big 12. Texas, beset by injuries on defense.
Yeah.
Caden Stearns is hurt. Josh Thompson's hurt. B.J. Foster's hurt. They got a lot of guys banged up. And Brandon Jones, their great safety's hurt. They got a lot of guys hurt. They've got to figure out a way to just pull it together, put some gauze, some tape, some Robitussin, whatever you need to do to get this win at TCU.
Yeah.
And then maybe during the TCU, K-State, then a bye week, maybe they'll be okay after that.
Yeah.
But for right now, it's DEFCON 5. They are in a lot of trouble right now.
Yeah, and that defense, Cedric, as Texas had its, swoon through the end of the Mac Brown era, the Charlie Strong era, a lot of the issues were quarterback related, not having a good enough quarterback and not having enough difference makers in the passing game, those sorts of things. The defense, while it wasn't nearly the strength that we saw sort of in the championship type of years, you didn't have those name players, you still felt like the Texas defense could do some damage, and now they're getting damaged. And I know about bad defense. I've seen bad defense in my neck of the woods, and 2,000 yards in 4 games, that is bad defense. So I think it is shocking. I know part of it is those, it's the injury bug. But, man, I really thought that once Sam Ehlinger started to elevate his play, that would really take Texas to the next level. And instead, Cedric, aren't we sitting here saying, is Baylor the best team, second best team in the Big 12 to Oklahoma? It sure looks that way right now. Who would argue? Are you arguing that?
Absolutely not. Because when I went and covered Baylor and Iowa State in Waco, and Baylor beat Iowa State, I had originally thought Iowa State, and we talked about this in Dallas, Jen. We thought Iowa State was the third best team. Baylor wins that, and so I wrote, my column was Baylor for the bronze in the Big 12, third best team. I've changed my mind. Right now, Baylor's probably the second best team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
The numbers don't lie. They're getting stops. They went to Stillwater and punked the Mullet. They beat them like they stole something. And then, Jen, that's the same Oklahoma State team that nearly won down here.
Yeah.
Gave Texas all they could handle in Austin. So I'm telling you, Matt Rule has it going at Baylor. They lost their best linebacker, Clay Johnston, for the season, and they're still getting wins. So I'm telling you, I think the Baylor Bears are on a run right now. And if you're asking me right now, they are the second best team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
Now, they get Texas at home. They get Oklahoma at home.
Yeah.
But the problem for them is they get them back to back.
Yeah.
That's a tough double right there. If I'm Matt Rule, I'm like, man, if we can just get one, if we can beat one of these teams, we're probably going to be in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, and I think, I got to see that Baylor-Oklahoma State game in person, like you got to see Baylor and Iowa State earlier this year, Cedric. And, I think I knew going in, the stats told me this is a team that doesn't beat itself. It's not going to make a bunch of stupid mistakes. And that was a big part of it. But they've also got some talent. I mean, obviously Charlie Brewer, knew about him, knew about Mims at wide receiver, knew about some of those guys, but they on defense they can run you down. They don't. They don't beat themselves. They don't let one mistake roll into another. They're opportunistic when they need to be. We obviously saw 3 Oklahoma State turnovers. One that was the killer really turned the tide. But then on offense, they'll run away from you. They had huge plays throughout that game. So I think that they're a team that, is maybe, I think they're pretty likely to, even though they do have that Oklahoma-Texas back-to-back setup on their schedule, I like them to be able to get to Arlington to the championship game. I think it would be fascinating to see 2 years after they win one game, Matt Rule's first year, to be in that Big 12 championship game. Would not surprise me at all to see that. It's going to be fascinating to see how they continue to fare. I like them, but, Big 12, got some big games coming up. We'll see how it all shakes down. Obviously, the NFL, all the other sports. We'll probably have a World Series champion by the time we get together again next week. So we've got all sorts of stuff coming up next time around. We hope you'll join us then, but thanks for joining us this week.